video is late, probably about a week late if I manage to get it up today or not. October, November, whatever we're doing right now, has been a bit of a month. I didn't read as many books as I've been reading in the past couple months. I got through 6.5 books this month, I want to say. I say half because I'm trying to work my way through the complete Grimm's Fairy Tales, which is like 880 pages, I want to say. And I've read 316 pages from that, so I'm not counting it, I'm not showing it because it's not done, but I would like to count it in the amount of pages that I've read this month because it's been a thing to work through. I'm trying to work through like the Barnes & Noble's classics, and that's the one I started with because it seems spooky. This month I read 6.5 books, 2,073 pages, so let's just get right into them. The first book that I read this month was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I was super excited for this book to come out. I pre-ordered this book so that it got here like as soon as it possibly could. I got one of the signed editions, signed by John Green, so I was really excited about that. And I've talked about before how I kind of like the idea of John Green more than I end up actually liking John Green books. But this book was the exception, for which I am so grateful. Most of his books end up getting like a 3, maybe a 4-star for me, but this was definitely a 5. It was amazing. There's been a lot of hype about this book, so you probably know what it's about. If you don't, it's John Green writing about a 16-year-old named Aza, who suffers from anxiety and OCD, and she's just trying to like navigate her way through high school with her best friend. And oh yeah, they also happen to be like doing this like mystery search for a billionaire who's gone missing, and there's like a big cash reward if he's found. So there's also that going on. There's always something like quirky in a John Green book. It can never just be something simple. I don't think it's his writing style. Also, if you don't know what a tuatara is, you're gonna learn about that too. I know people have been getting kind of annoyed with a little bit of the storyline of that in here, but I thought it was kind of neat. So if you don't know what it is, maybe look it up. 5 out of 5, no complaints. This was fantastic. Next book that I tackled was The Right by Matt Baglio. So this book started into the books that I was reading for Spookathon. Most of my books that I read this month were a part of Spookathon, so I'm not going to talk about them a lot because I already vlogged about them. I'll just say a little bit. This is not what I thought it was going to be. I thought that this was going to be more like the movie The Right, which I've seen, which is supposed to be based on this book, but this was more like information and historical telling, and like telling you about Catholicism and the Catechism and you know, what people actually think about exorcisms and demons and possession in the church. And that was all really interesting to me. I mean, I am Catholic. I like reading about that kind of stuff. I totally believe in exorcisms. It was a really good, like, spooky topic for the month. It's just not what I was anticipating, and so for that reason I think it got a little bit of a lower rating, which kind of was probably my fault. After that, I picked up The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Apparently I'm like one of the last people in the universe to read this book because I didn't even realize it was a thing, or that it was popular, or that there was a movie made about it, but all of those things are true. This book I ended up giving 4 stars. It is a book about a man and his son, their walk along the road after something really terrible and cataclysmic has happened to the world. Everything is kind of like covered in gray and ashy. There aren't people around, there's not food around, there was some kind of disaster, and it's just their story trying to survive, just the two of them out there amongst like, you're trying to battle things like starvation and the elements and cold, and there's also bandits on the road and the bad guys and things like that. I think that this book probably could have been 5 stars, but it was just missing a couple things that like I really wanted in a dystopian novel. Like, I know some people think that like, well, you know, it doesn't matter how the world ended, like you don't need the backstory, the important part is where they're at right now. But I really like knowing that, like, even if it's a crappy explanation for why the universe is the way it is, I'd kind of like to know why what's happening is happening. And they hinted at it and things like that, and you could kind of gather more or less what was going on. But for me, I just wanted it to be more like spelled out, more like well thought out, and I just don't think it was meant to be a book like that. I was also kind of bothered by the fact that nobody had names. It was just like boy, woman, son, father, man, whatever. I don't know why that bothers me so much. I think it's just a stylistic thing. And I also had to kind of get around the fact that in this book, there are no chapters anywhere. No chapters, none at all. Just a lot of spacing between paragraphs. And that's another stylistic thing that tends to drive me kind of crazy. The last book that I read that was set up that way was Stolen by Lucy Christopher, or Christopher Lucy, something like that. I don't know, I gave the book a really poor rating. I didn't mind it as much in this one because the writing stylistically was a lot better than that other book, but it still kind of drove me crazy. So overall, 4 stars. Then I picked up The Book of Dead Days by Marcus Sedgwick. I can't believe I said that right on the first try. This is a book about a magician in the olden times, and something happened. He made some kind of like deal with a spirit or something to get like wealth and power and fame and some wishes and things like that, and it had a timetable on it, and now it's time to collect, and what he had bargained was his soul. So now it's time for his soul to be collected, and it's going to occur during or at the end of the Dead Days. So the Dead Days are the time between Christmas and New Year's, set in the book, and at the very end, it's like New Year's Eve, I think, something is coming to basically like end this guy's life. So the book is about him and his servant, whose name is Boy. Again, this character doesn't have a name, it's just Boy, like, okay. Him and his servant and another servant girl are trying to figure out if there's basically like a way out of this bargain, and the story is about them. This was okay. I didn't have really high expectations of it. It was fine. It was quick enough to read through. Some parts of it were interesting. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I was a little bit annoyed when I got to the end to find out that there was a companion novel. I thought this was a standalone, and it's not. I'm not going to be picking up the second book. I don't have any interest in buying it, but if I happen to be like at a discount place or like bargain books or something like that, and I happen to come across it and it's like $1 or $2, maybe I'd pick it up, but I'm not going to go out of my way to search for this, so 3 stars. The final book that I was reading during Spookathon was How to Hang a Witch by Adriana Mather. This book is about a girl who returns to Salem with her dad and her stepmom. She's descended from the name Mather, and basically a lot of stuff starts going down whenever she goes back into this town. There's this group of girls in her high school that call themselves the Descendants, and it's kind of like a, I don't know, it's supposed to be a clique, but it seems kind of like a cult in the book, of these other girls who are descended of witches, and they sort of like terrorize this girl because she's descended from the name Mather. So the book is set up sort of like, what if the Salem witch trials were real? What if witches, blah, 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 are real? What if magic is real? And what if it still lives on today? So it's the story about this girl, moving back into the town. Some kind of crazy things happen. Her dad's in a coma. There were a lot of twists and turns in this book. It was pretty thick. It was probably the thickest book that I read during the Spookathon. I only got through like part of it for Spookathon and then ended up reading the rest after that. But it was really good. I liked it a lot. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I didn't see the end coming until it was basically there, so I was grateful for that. Again, a little disappointed that I found out that there's a second book and that this is actually a series. I don't know why things can't just be standalones. I will not be picking up the second book in this one, not because I didn't like it, but because I don't want the storyline to be ruined. I think that this book wrapped up really nicely. I think the characters developed really nicely. I was comfortable with the way that it ended. I didn't find myself like wanting or needing to know more, and I don't want to mess that up. So I'm not going to pick up the second one, but this one was very good, and I gave it 4 stars. Last book I ended up picking up is called Apathy and Other Small Victories by Paul Nealon. This book was hilarious. I ended up giving it 4 stars as well. This book is about a guy named Shane. Shane doesn't give a shit about his life. Shane is doing some pencil pushing intern job, more or less sleeping with not his direct boss, but someone like that who insists that they're boyfriend girlfriend that he doesn't really like. You can totally see the dog up there in the corner. He wants to come outside, but he makes a lot of noise, so he can't be out here when I do these. But anyways, so Shane doesn't really care about anything. Shane drinks a lot. Shane steals salt shakers from restaurants. He doesn't really have any friends or family. And then one day, he gets accused of murdering his boss's dental assistant, who happens to be deaf. And this book is about his life going up to those events, as well as the police questioning. You kind of go back and forth between the two. Because the police are convinced that he killed this dental assistant, and he basically almost does not give a shit enough about his own life to even try to prove that he's actually innocent, because he actually didn't kill her, which they make clear from the beginning. That's not a spoiler or anything. But I thought it was really funny. The book is pretty cynical. There's a lot of really dark humor. It is not politically correct. It is one of the most politically incorrect books I have ever read. But if you can stomach that, and if you have enough of a sense of humor and aren't super uptight, like as a human being, I think you might really end up liking this book. What I took away from it is that, sometimes apathy really can be a small victory. And I don't want to say too much more about it because I don't want to give anything away. If you're on the fence about reading this book, it is very small, and you can probably get through it in a day or two. So if you see it, I would say give it a chance. I gave it 4 stars. So that's it for books that I completed this month. I also read part of the Grimm's Fairy Tales. I'm going to try to get that book finished in November. I'm not too sure about that. I don't know. I picked that one up for a while, and then I end up like putting it back down, and I'm not super into it, but I'd like to be into it. I like the idea of it. So I think we'll just see how it goes from there. I've already gotten a couple books read this month, so November is starting off to be a pretty good reading month. I have like 4 books read right now, and I'm pretty excited about that, so I guess we'll just see. I don't really have anything more to say. Did you guys do Spookathon? Did you get through all your books in Spookathon? I didn't. I got close. Did you find anything in October that you really like to read? Let me know. That's it. I'll see you later.